Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. So we do daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. The most important news and editorial of the day, that is relevant for both prelims and mains examination of civil services, will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 25th of November. The first important news, that is Center notifies draft aviation security rules 2022. Second, nuclear iceberg and militarization of the Arctic. This is from the text and context page of the Hindu. Third, NSO Survey finds dip in the unemployment rate. The marginal dip has been seen. We'll see the detail about this. India and Iran to discuss the development of Chahbahar Port, how this port is significant for India and how the revamped version is working for the further development. And the last is an editorial, the sustainable development boost. So these are some of the important news and editorial for the day. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And before I begin this session, those of you new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful for examination purpose, do press a like button. Starting the session with the first news, that is Center notifies draft aircraft security rules 2022, something important for general studies paper 2 under the subsection, that is government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from a design and implementation. And at the same time, it is also important for general studies paper 3 under the infrastructure development. So recently, the Ministry of Civil Aviation has notified the draft aircraft rule 2022, and this aircraft rule will call for more robust regulation in terms of aviation sector in our country. Now, this rule will enable the aviation security regulator, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. This is the new organization that was formed, and even I have also discussed this news. मैंने आपके साथ ये पहले भी discuss किया है how this Bureau of Civil Aviation Security will be providing the overall regulation of aviation sector in our country, right? So now this body will be empowered to impose the penalties up to 1 crore rupees for the airline and the airport for the violation of any security measures that is reported. If you compare India with other emerging countries and the developed countries like US, China, and even beat Singapore, Britain, the regulation in India is not as par with the other developed countries. So essentially, the requirement for Bureau of Civil Aviation Security was very important. Now for this context, अगर Bureau of Civil Aviation Security की बात करें, you can expect a prelims question, a two-statement question can be framed, or even if you're writing in mains paper, about the regulation part, you can highlight in the general studies mains paper as well. Now, talking about the penal provisions, जो इसमें include की गई है, one of the draft rules has, once the draft rules is notified by the government, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, better known as BCAS, can impose a fine up to 50 lakh to 1 crore rupees on airport and airline. So this would be the authority and the power that will be envisaged with the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. Now, if the airport and airline fails to prepare and implement the security program, they have to commence the operation without seeking a security clearances. Now, the large airport can face a penalty up to 1 crore rupees if they fail to plan and design the layout in accordance with the rule that is there by the National Civil Aviation Security Program. Individual who face the penalty ranging from 1 lakh to 25 lakh depending upon the nature and the offenses. So it will vary upon the nature of the offense, and even if you talk about the penal provision, the amount will accordingly vary. It will be different for the airport, it will be different for the airlines. Now, other important power that is there with the BCAS, that is the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. तो कुछ और important power दी गई हैं, कुछ proposed powers की बात करें, they will be also able to suspend or cancel the entity of the airport security clearances and security program. So these body will also be having apex body with a regulatory power and the supervisory powers. The rule will supersede the aircraft security rule, which was there in 2021. And the necessary amendment that was made by the Parliament 2020 gave the statutory power to BCS. Right? along with the Director General of Civil Aviation and Aviation Accident Investigation Bureau. In the recent time, the cases talking about the other malfunctioning of the airport and airlines were severely reported in India. Now, this allowed them to impose a penalty that would not only be imposed to the court earlier, and the act also raised the maximum penalty for 10 lakh rupees to 1 crore rupees. Now, if you see into the background and asking about the questions, like for mains examination, a question can be directly framed about the regulatory provisions with regards to the aviation sector in our country. तो ऐसे questions में आप बी कैस के बारे में भी example use कर पाएंगे. Now, moving to the other news, that is Russia's nuclear icebergs and materialization of Arctic, something important for General Studies Paper 2, under the subtopic that is bilateral regional grouping and agreement. And in this context, we'll see how Russia's intention and inclinations towards the development of Arctic is developing. So recently, the Russian president has virtually met over the launch and flag raising ceremony for the 2 nuclear power icebreakers at St. Petersburg. And he said that the ice breaking was a strategic important for Russia. There are many other countries who are also trying to claim the region. We'll see the perspective of that as well as India's interest in that. That will be covered on the later part of the video. As a climate change open, the Arctic giving access to the new route and the new resources, and there's a race by the adjoining countries to build up their militaries, and Russia has a clear lead compared to any other country. So this is a broad picture and map which will help you understand about the region. This is the Arctic Ocean. And this particular thing is also important for the map work. Even UPSC tend to ask a direct question in the mains, basically map work in the prelims examination. I'll use this map on the later part also, where we'll be seeing the significance of the country that is there in terms of the Arctic Ocean or the Arctic region. Now, significance of Russia's icebreakers की अगर बात करें, according to Russian president, both icebreaker has laid down the part of large-scale systematic work and recouped with the refurnished domestic icebreaker fleet to strengthen the Russia's status as a great Arctic power. Russia has been inevitably trying to dominate the region. As far the proximity is concerned, Russia is the closest one. Now, the flag was also raised with another vessel, that is Ural, which is expected to become operational in December, and Yuktya that will join by 2024. There are 2 already similar vessels that is operating, that is Artika and Sibir. The last 2 decades, Russia has reactivated several Soviet-era Arctic missile military bases that has upgraded its capabilities. So considering the fact with the Russia's and Ukraine war that is ongoing, Russia will definitely chase for region that is vacant and will Russia can occupy it. So these are some of the intention on personal note that Vladimir Putin is also looking forward with. Now, why are the countries racing towards Arctic? There has been the race among the near Arctic state to augment the capabilities to build are ready to capitalize the melting Arctics. Now, Russia's military modernization in the Arctic has promoted the Arctic state to join the bandwagon. Bandwagon का मतलब है वैसे कामों पे जो दूसरी countries कर रही है, they are also trying to do the same, right? For instances, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is NATO, has been conducting a regular exercise in the region, while partnering countries are also investing in upgrading the capabilities. At the same time, China itself called for the near Arctic and also announced an ambitious plan for the polar Silk Route that will connect Europe as well as massive icebreakers. Now, talking about the intention of the countries, why there are other countries that are also having the intention about the Arctic. So if you see close to Russia, Russia almost have a half circle which is aligning there. There's also proximity with the United States, then Canada, Greenland. So these are the countries that will be mostly looking forward to occupy the region, right? They will be dominating with any military bases or any sort of experiment. Now, what is India's stand on Arctic? India की क्या stand है Arctic को लेकर के? Since 2007, India has an Arctic research program with as many as 13 expeditious process that is undertaking till day. In March 22, India has unveiled the first Arctic policy, that is, India and the Arctic building a partnership for sustainable development. So, this is very important. You can expect a direct question in the mains examination when it comes to Arctic and India's stand on Arctic, because the government of India has categorically released a policy named as India and Arctic building the partnership for sustainable development. Now, India is also one of the country which has 13 observation in the Arctic Council and leading intergovernmental forum promoting the cooperation in the Arctic region. Now, what next? As the Earth further heats up, which is profound that the poles, the races for Arctic will accelerate, and it will call for Arctic next geopolitical hotspot that will interest the converging countries in terms of environmental, economic, political, and military interest. Now, moving to the other news, that is NSO survey finds dip in the unemployment rate, something important for general studies paper 2, that is the government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from a design and implementation. This news is also important for general studies paper 3, where Indian economy and issues related to development and unemployment are concerned. Now, according to the latest periodic labor force survey, which is released by the National Statistical Organization, also known as NSO, the unemployment rate in the urban area for the person above age 15 has eased to 7.2%. This is the current data, and this is for July and September from the earlier, that is 9.8, and usse pehle 7.60. The unemployment rate was 6.6% for men and 9.4% for women. If you're appearing for mains next year, these data will be relevant and significant for main purposes. Now, the rate for earlier was 9.3 and 11.6 respectively for July and September. The unemployment rate is defined as percentage of person, that is unemployed among the person in the labor force. So this is how the unemployment ratio is calculated. Now, workforce population ratio की अगर बात करें, so this is also known as WPR, that has witnessed a marginal increase compared to last year. So it has seen a bit increase, and WPR is defined as a percentage of unemployment person with the populations. Now, WPR में urban area की अगर बात करें, the person aged between 15 and above has stood to 44.5% in July and September, and there's an increase that is 42.3% in the corresponding period. तो पहले सालों में 42.3% थी, जो कि अब बढ़ के 44.5% हो गई है, and it was earlier 43.9%. The WPR among the men was 68.6% and among women was 19.7%. It was 66.6% in 2021, and for other category it was 17.6% for women. Right? Now, labor force participation rate की अगर बात करें, this is also known as LFPR. It's defined as a percentage of a person in a labor workforce who are working or seeking or available for the works in the population in both urban areas. Specifically, it's mostly concerning the urban areas of the person between age 15 and above. The labor force participation rate has increased to 47.9%, right? And it was 47.5% in July. LFR among the men was something 73, and for women it was 21. The LFR rate has been steadily declining despite the increase in the educational attainment. This is the fact that after the skill development or any other kind of thing that is the government is promoting in terms of women empowerment, providing the skill, the number and the rate of the women participation is on the lower side. Now, if you look into these images, this will give you clarity about the state-wise unemployment rate. The highest unemployment rate has been witnessed in the state of Puducherry, followed by Tamil Nadu, then Jharkhand, Bihar, Haryana, Tripura, and Karnataka. If you see the state with the maximum number of employment rate, that will go to Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Punjab, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Uttarakhand, Meghalaya, Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Goa, and Delhi. So accordingly, you can rate it. Average in India, it is 23.5%. And this is the declining trend map for the men and women. The marginal date has also been specified for 2021 and January to March 2022, and this is for July to September 2022. Moving to the other news, that is India, Iran discuss the development of Chahbahar Port, something important for General Studies Paper 2, under the subtopic that is effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest and India's diaspora. Recently, India and Iran has discussed the development of Chahbahar Port and exchanged the views on regional and international issues, including Afghanistan, as both sides had held delegation level talks. Now, both sides has discussed the bilateral relations, including the development of Chahbahar Port, and also discussed the regional and international issues of mutual interest between India and Iran. Now, if you look into this map, this will give you an idea and significance of the port that is Shahid Beheshti. This is there in Chahbahar region. And the important point to be noted for the prelims examination, you have to note the region, that is the mapper Gulf of Oman is between which region, and here the Persian Gulf. So these two are something important. The other countries like neighboring countries, Iran and Saudi Arabia and Oman, will be again significant. Now, agreement on port development. India is developing the first phase of Shahid Beheshti port in Chahbahar. The capacity of the port will reach to 8.5 megaton by the end of the first phase of the development. During the visit to Iran in 2016, the Prime Minister of India has signed a contract with the Chahbahar Port, Inter with the investment of 85 million to proceed for further development of the port. Now, how it is going to be significant for India? If you look into the map, this is the region of the Chahbahar Port, and India will be using the port of Mumbai for further logistic part and other trade between the countries. So this is only a difference of 72 kilometer distance between the Chahbahar Port and the Gwadar Port, right? So this is how it is significant, and the region being the government of India is having the investment in the Chahbahar Port region. Now, talking about the bilateral relations during the delegation level talk, both sides discussed the entire gamut of bilateral relations that include political, economical, culture, and consular engagement. Both sides has reiterated their commitment to continue the cooperations and development of the Shahid Beheshti terminal at Chahbahar Port, and countries are looking on the views where the regional and international issues, including Afghanistan, was also discussed. Iran and India has discussed the bilateral cooperation of the JCPO, जिसे Joint Comprehensive Plan for Agreement या फिर Actions के नाम से जाना जाता है, which was also known as 2015 Nuclear Agreement Program. Now, India and Iran commercial ties की अगर बात करें, India and Iran have a commercial ties were traditionally dominated by the Indian port of the crude oil, and especially in 2018-19, India imported around 12.1 billion worth of the crude oil from Iran. But after the significant reduction exemption, जिसे SRE भी कहा जाता है, उसके reductions के बाद इंडिया ने ईरान से क्रूड ऑयल इंपोर्ट करना बंद कर दिया because it was definitely impacting our forex reserve. We'll have to pay higher amount. The reason being India has reduced the consumption and the import. The bilateral during 2019 was just 4.77 billion, and this was decrease of 71.99% compared to the other trade. So, talking about India's major export and import, we'll look into the part where India export more and what is the import. So, India's major export to Iran include rice, tea, sugar, soya, medicine and pharmaceuticals, man-made staple fibers, electric machineries, and etc. And import major export from Iran include inorganic and organic chemical, fertilizers, cement, clinker, fruit, nuts, leather, and both countries are negotiating on the preferential trade agreement, also known as PTA. तो preferential trade agreement और FTA के बारे में भी दोनों countries ने consider किया, and there will be other level of round of talk that will be going between India and Iran. Now, moving to the editorial of the day, the Sustainable Development Boost, something important for General Studies Paper 2 under the subtopic that is bilateral regional grouping and agreement involving India and affecting India's interest. So, what is the theme of this editorial? So first is India's G20 roadmap and the SDG target. We'll be looking into the editorial to simplify it. So some of the subhead include focusing on the SDG goal, chasing the SDG target and reality, food and nutritional insecurity, energy security and climate change and carbon emissions, digital inclusion, financing for the SDG target, and the conclusion. So, as we know, it is evident from the fact that India's G20 presidents will start from December 2022 and will last till November 2023. And this is a historic opportunity for India to promote inclusive development across the countries. And it would also set a benchmark and create an impression for India to understand the problem which is there at the global level. At the recent meeting in Bali, it was also organized that war is not a solution for anything. We need to concentrate on the part of economic and social development. If you see in the current context, the war between Russia and Ukraine, this has only a devastating effect, right? Nothing has been gained. Even in due course of time, the war is going to end. But what is ultimate? The loss of human life and the loss of infrastructure development. Now, there's a little particular important thing in this context that need to be noted in terms of global challenges, which include low economic growth because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic slowdown, and also the action taken by the US Fed, which has also resulted in the basically the rate repercussions. So there's a low economic growth rate. Increasing inflation is on the other side. Disruption of the supply chain is also because of the fact that the Russia and Ukraine is ongoing with the war. Russia and Ukraine are the major supplier. Even if we talk about the oil, palm oils and other oil that is being supported by the Ukraine, they're the largest producer in the world. Rising concern about the food, energy security and debt problem are some of the major global concerns that India will have to look for it. Now, focusing on SDG goal, अगर sustainable development goal की बात करें, it's an important that will have to benefit all section of the society, and SDG are interconnected, cover all inclusive issues like poverty, food, nutritional security, health, education, women empowerment, and climate change, also for the employment purposes. Now, India can showcase some of the country's achievement at G20 meeting in the next year, and India will have to show the best practices among the countries, because we have to learn from the fact that if any country has done well in any of the sector, that best practices need to be incorporated. Now, if we talk about the Sherpa track and the financial track, that will be also very much useful for these purposes. Now, chasing the SDG target and reality, the new working paper of the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister that shows that the current trend of the worldwide will reach by 2030 promises, and almost the country will be too late to achieving the target, and it will be reached by 2078. Said that the India stand out of because of the G20 countries that has the fastest trend in the growing, that is from 2015 to 19, and the moving faster in the low and middle income countries. So India की performance की बात करें comparatively, it is on the pace is on the higher side, but to achieve overall target of the SDG, it will be too delayed. On the current trend, India is likely to achieve the SDG target by 2059, and India has suggested that these priority will also be discussed in the G20 meeting. The pandemic has pushed close to 93 million people globally into extreme poverty. There is a loss of life, there is a loss of livelihood, and also the loss of employment that many people have faced. Now, food and nutritional insecurity की अगर बात करें, there is a concern that is there. The world and food in nutritional security is there. It has recognized the sustainable food system as an important for achieving the zero hunger and nutritional security. India can share its experiences where India has basically chased the target from food deficient country to food surplus country. India में कई ऐसे revolution हुई, green revolution, white revolution, which many other country can learn from it. Now, in terms of agriculture, MS Swaminathan is the man behind the Green Revolution. He has advocated for Evergreen Revolution. Evergreen Revolution एक बहुत ही important topic है mains examination के लिए. You can directly get a question on analysis part that how India can move from green revolutions to evergreen revolution. तो उसके लिए कुछ important points highlight किए गए हैं that how India can achieve a evergreen revolution. So it can be done by working and promoting agriculture and a sound practices like conservation farming, precision agriculture, integrated nutrient supply, pest management, and natural conservation is the essential requirement if you want to achieve the evergreen revolution. Now, for example, organic farming in Sikkim, community management And Andhra Pradesh has showcased the world that how this can be achieved. Now, regarding the food-related social protection distribution of food grain through Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, which has continued, has also affected the last section of the population in India specifically and benefited because these people were actually impacted due to COVID-19 lockdown and pandemics. Now, energy security and climate change की अगर बात करें, energy security and climate change are equally important issues for the G20 presidency. India will have to take a stand on energy security, and this will continue for a longer period. There should not be any restriction on supply of energy, and the stability of energy market should continue. India's dependence on coal is still there, which is a concern for many other countries as well, and may continue for many other years. बिकॉज कोप 27 की अगर बात करें, कोप 27 ने फेज डाउन की बात की है, एंड इवन फॉर द यूजेस ऑफ कोल इज ऑल्सो अ डिमांड, राइट? सो इंडिया विल बी डेफिनेटली लुकिंग आउट फॉर एन अल्टरनेटिव सोर्स अपार्ट फ्रॉम कोल, बट at instant period India will definitely use coal because there is no alternative. If you want to build any alternate source, it will take its time. So India for a sustainable time will use the coal as an alternative, coal as a fuel, but in the longer run it will always choose for the alternative mechanism. Now, climate change and carbon emissions की बात करें, on a climate change and reduction in the carbon emission, India has committed to reduce the net zero emissions by 2070. There was a Panchamrit target that was set by the Prime Minister during the COP26 meeting, right? और उसी COP26 meeting ने इंडिया में advocate किया that by 2070 India will be achieving the net zero emissions, and 50% of the energy requirement will be done through the renewable energy by 2030. The country continued to focus on climate finance, technology transfer, MNC reductions, and historically to reduce the consumption pattern. The COP27 has also been known for loss and damage fund. This is the most significant achievement of the COP27. एक बहुत ही बड़ी achievement है जहाँ पे loss और damage fund create की गई है, which was demanded long by the developing countries, right? This will be compensating the developing countries in their overall development. Now, digital inclusions की अगर बात करें, other important focus area for India in the G20 presidency will be digital inclusion, which raise for both growth and equality, and India will have to show that it promote the universal digital services. Globally, there is a lot of interest for India's success in the UPI. अगर UPI की बात करें, India is a country which has the maximum number of UPI payment, and even this number has taken a toll to very higher multiplier effect, right? And it has also the direct benefits transfer like Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, Mobile Trinity, which is also known as JAM, right? This has also worked significantly for many government programs and policies. And it has also reduced the middleman and also called for more transparency in the beneficiaries' account. For example, PM Shwanidhi is a helping street vendor in different states. It's working. There are many other sort of benefits like PDS beneficiaries are there, मनरेगा के beneficiaries हैं, कई ऐसे लोग beneficiaries जो direct benefit transfer. Even for the scholarship program, the government has come up with the DBT mode. Now, financing for the SDG target. SDG targets को किस तरह से finance करना, उसके लिए already कुछ organization है, they are restructuring on the part, which include the World Bank, the IMF, and the World Trade Organization, right? So important financial problem and the debt problem is also concerning the developing countries. On the SDG part, कुछ 6 pathway बताए गए हैं that need to be achieved to have a SDG financing, which include increasing the domestic tax revenue, increasing the sovereign borrowing from the International Development Financial Institution, which is also known as DFIs, increase sovereign borrowing from the International Private Capital Market, increased official development assistance, increased funding in the private foundation and philanthropy. So NGO या PPP mode पे जो public private partnership है उस पे काम की जा सकती है, and even the debt restructuring on heavy indebtedness borrowing mainly to lengthen the maturity and reduce the interest rate, and India can give boost to this pathway. Definitely, India is a country which has a huge potential. We have the 5 largest economy in the world with a huge demographic dividend. So potentially we need to utilize it, and the government of India need to set a target where they can achieve the global parameters as well. Now, what is the conclusion from this editorial? So there was a setback in the progress made due to SDG, and to shock high due to COVID-19, these targets were not met because the country were lagging for 2 years. Russia's Ukraine war is something that is also an impediment for this progress. Low economic growth and high inflation will definitely be a challenging to achieve the target of SDG by 2030. India should focus more on recusing the accelerating progress on SDG during the G20 presidency for inclusive development, which can improve the growth and sustainability not only for India but for the entire globe. And India will definitely advocate for all the member countries to ensure that they are working on the line and length and the parameter that is set by India, and for many other countries that is looking forward with the sustainable development for the globe. Now, moving to the MCQ questions of the day. Before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday's questions. For first question, the correct option is C. For second question, the correct option is B. Today's MCQ for practice: Making Peace with Nature. A report was recently published by United Nations Environment Programme, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, Food and Agriculture Organization, World Wildlife Food for Nature. So do check it out for the correct options. Now the second, vertical launch short range surface to air missile. It's indigenously designed and developed by DRDO. It is capable of neutralizing aerial threat at the close, including the sea skimming target. So this type of question is important for prelims examination and also for CAPF and many other competitive examination that is there by the UPSC and other government organization. You have to practice this. This will definitely help you to get an extra edge over the upcoming prelims examination. So this was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis, followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.